one of the biggest challenges we have involving people as part of that, equation of security is social media, because people are social. People want you to know where they work.
Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics.
That IT guy that has the keys to the kingdom, that says, never me, I'll never be exploited, I'll never be, compromised. He doesn't know that he's fourth on the list. This compromise that affected him happened 6 months ago with an HR person. So and a lot of this starts with your home email accounts, your personal Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. It happens out there.
Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's new Cyber Frontier.
It's social engineering.
So your kind of thought is that looking at the people and aspect is the best way to approach cybersecurity in general.
I think that's one of the best ways, because I think that's extremely important. I think organizations need to educate their employees better about the threats that they face outside their normal day-to-day work, just in their personal lives, that could be linked to an adversary trying to gain access to their work, or to whatever organization they work in. I think they need to be better educated about that. But secondly, this is what I wanted to mention before I started talking about social engineering, was this area outside the outer perimeter, where a lot of money is spent defending that outer perimeter, network defense, right? We have a name for that. We call that conceded space.
Explain why that definition.
All this money is spent on the outer perimeter, thinking if we just build a high enough wall, right? If we just build a high enough wall, no one will ever make it in where the
But I've seen that first of all on the computer, then on the network, now in the data. You've seen that's been the boom in the last couple of years. It's been every area of that kind of segregation of technology.
But a smart adversary will, like I said, be patient.
Yeah.
He'll keep building a taller ladder to get over that taller wall, and he'll keep testing every single piece of it. Mm-hmm. They know what security products are used on the outer perimeter. They know, you know what I mean? They know what's being used, and they know how these things change. They know when they're updated. They test them. A good adversary tests these things over time, and they adjust their approach. They adjust their tactics to meet the defense. And then once they're inside, this is where they loiter for a while. They're in that conceded space where most organizations, all they have on the endpoint is, let's say, some malware and virus protection. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at an active adversary that's made it past the outer defense, that's sitting internal, using the resources of someone's desktop computer to find their way and move laterally throughout the network to where the IP, the intellectual property, or whatever it might be, where the real gold is to them. We operate in that space. Mm-hmm. That's what makes us different. We put very skilled, experienced cyber operators from the intelligence community, actually, is where we recruit most of our cyber operators. Mm-hmm. We put them in that conceded space inside the network. It's called Hunt. That's what we call it. Mm-hmm. And we have access, or we're given access, by the organizations that we work for, to be able to look for the indicators of compromise within that conceded space. So we're looking at the endpoints. We're looking at, someone's personal laptop that's on the network. If that's part of the network that we've been allowed to hunt on, we'll look at the processes that are running on that machine. Look at some of the history of the login history per se that's on that machine, and make sure the credentials being used are proper credentials. We'll look at credential use across the entire network to see if there's duplication of credentials being used in different places that could potentially be unauthorized, or could be an adversary who has gained that credential and is now moving laterally throughout the network, testing where he can use it, what he has access to.
Interesting.
So it's our approach is very much that this is a human problem, and it takes humans to solve it,
the human problem.
to defend it.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
So we're talking today with James Krainock from Route 9B, and you're a Colorado Springs-based company, right?
Yes, we are.
So give us some background on the company. You kind of gave us, that was a perfect intro to what you do and why. And I think, but now tell us about yourself and the company there.
Well, I'm the lead forensic investigator at Route 9B. As we provide more incident response capabilities to our customers, and outside of cyber events, we even do forensic investigations for all types of civil litigation, intellectual property theft, embezzlement. So we even work outside of cyber. But as an organization, we are a very much so cyber-focused, cybersecurity, cyber defense-focused company.
So what I heard with your introduction there in our discussion is you're almost like a private investigator company.
Well, I actually am a private investigator. It's funny that you picked up on that, but I do hold a PI license myself, and in my background, I spent about 10 years working as a civilian contractor for a few different federal law enforcement agencies in the U.S. and abroad, working in child exploitation investigations, specifically on the digital investigation side. So tracking down, identifying victims of child exploitation based on video and image evidence, and the stuff that nobody wants to talk about, that nobody wants to
watch.
Nobody wants to think about.
I heard an attorney tell me he quit being an attorney when he had to go through a case and see those pictures.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to do, and I'm very proud of the work that I did there and the time that I spent doing that work. I can honestly say that I have never met such good and dedicated people as the law enforcement officers that I worked with across all agencies, whether it was the FBI, Interpol I worked with for a while, Homeland Security Investigations. We have an ICAC team, which is Internet Crimes Against Children, right here in Colorado Springs. Every individual I've met that I've worked with that works child exploitation are special people.
And you know what? That gives you some special motivation when you know you're protecting children from that.
No doubt about it. And the satisfaction that I got from doing that work was second to none. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life, and in my work life anyway. And but I spent enough time doing it. And so what I did was
Can only take so much, huh?
Right. In 2011, I started a small organization that I operate under just to help educate, families on the risks in child exploitation. So I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but it's called Millstone. And what I do with Millstone is I do some pro bono work every once in a while for families or people that have that may think that they may have a child in their family that's being exploited, or they may not have the money to support a full forensic investigation when child exploitation has happened. So I do some pro bono work. I also use Millstone to speak to religious organizations and in schools, and help kids and teachers, administrators understand the threat that's really out there to our kids online, and how to defend themselves, how to best stay safe in this social media, world that we have today. So that's one of the things I do. But that's just something that I do on the side. My focus for the most part is really at Route 9B and our work that we do there. And because to me, that's just as important as the work I was, doing just a few years ago in child exploitation. It's just a different focus. Now we're looking at, protecting organizations' reputation, protecting their intellectual property. In some cases, protecting public services, which of course could be could affect everybody if we were to have a serious breach of, let's say, a power plant or something like that right here in Colorado Springs. Yeah. And then we also have government contracts as well, where we work with different military and government agencies and do a lot of training. So we train up their next generation of operators, cyber operators. So I'm really excited to be at Route 9B.
So you had mentioned before we started talking, previously when we talked, that you had an example that you could go through about what it is you do that would also help companies to know what to look for. So give us some example, or go through that example, so we can get an understanding of, one, what Route 9B does, and two, we'll learn something from how we can start looking at things in our companies.
Absolutely. This was a case. That's my law enforcement side calling it a case, but this is a client. It's a client of Route 9B's that contacted us and said, of course, on a Friday afternoon. It seems when it always happens is on a Friday afternoon. They call us on a Friday afternoon and say, we've been hit with ransomware. I think 2000.
Now explain what that was.
I think 2016 was the year of ransomware. I mean, it was just, that's when an adversary gains access to someone's, either personal computer or network, and through different means. And sometimes it's through phishing. Sometimes it's, there's a lot of different ways they go about to try to get access. But once they have access, they unleash a encryption capability on that machine or on that network to encrypt the data, and only they have the decryption key.
So they encrypt the data on your machine.
Correct.
And you have no way to get to your own data.
You have no way. It's been encrypted. They can pick and choose what they encrypt, or a lot of times they'll just encrypt everything. But always what comes along with it is a ransom note. Just like
that's the only thing that's unencrypted, right?
That's right. That's the only thing you can read. Or sometimes, the instructions on what you need to do to get your data back is, it's right there in the files that have been encrypted. You try to open up one of those files and a message comes up and it says, your data has been encrypted. If you want this data back, here's some instructions on how to purchase and send us X number of Bitcoin. It's almost always through Bitcoin. Almost always through Bitcoin. And then we'll give you the decryption key, or we'll give you instructions back on how you can get your data back.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Over 3 million data breaches happen every single day. That's over 2,000 records being compromised every minute. So often, we focus on securing web data access. But what if the attackers are already inside, having gained direct access to your storage through data management software? When it comes to communications that go directly into your storage devices, make SNIA your first line of protection. SNIA's conformance testing limits outdated communications that are known to be used by attackers. It works continuously behind the background to make sure your storage is protected. To find out if your data is truly secure, visit our website at www.snia.org/cybertest.
It's quite a famous example of this actually in 2016 where a hospital paid the ransom. You know, we've kind of as a culture here in the U.S., you know, we believe, you know, we don't negotiate, right? Right? We hear it all the time. We don't negotiate. We're terrorists. We don't pay ransoms. We don't do things like that. So it was interesting to hear of a organization that paid the ransom. Well, and the hacker, the adversary, made good on their promise and gave them the decryption key, and they were actually able to get their data back. You know, so they spent the money, which really wasn't a lot. You know, when you think about it, I mean, it was for an organization like a hospital.
How much did they ask for?
It was only a couple $1,000s. It wasn't very much in the grand scheme of, you know, what they spend on security, let's say, or what they would have spent even on investigating it. You know, so but they were taking a huge chance. They're huge risk because you know that you can't guarantee that the hacker is going to give you that decryption key. You know, and then there's just another $2,000 gone, and then they still have the keys to the kingdom. They've still encrypted everything. They're still in control. So you end up playing. They ended up playing their game, and for them it was a win. But it doesn't always turn out like that. It very rarely turns out like that.
So is this the one you were talking about, or is this a different?
This is a different one. That hospital was not a client of ours.
Okay.
Had they been, you know, things may have gone differently for them. They you know, if they had hunt operators, like I described, working in that conceded space within their network, they may have never been hit with with the ransomware to begin with. But the example, you know, back to the example I have of one of our clients that got hit with ransomware. So they call us on a Friday afternoon and say, you know, this server of ours, this public-facing server that we use to exchange data with our customers every day, has been hit with ransomware. Say, okay, you know, so they give us access, the appropriate access that we need to go about doing a forensic triage of the situation in an incident response. You know, this was incident response because this was an incident. So this wasn't our normal operation of hunting their network. This was something's happened. We need you in here right now. Find out what's happened. Okay, so we jump in and we do an initial investigation, initial assessment, which we call triage. And we do see the ransomware. We see that it's been isolated on this machine to a particular user account. Okay, it may mean something that might not be relevant. We don't know yet. But one of the most difficult things that the client asked for us to do in this case was they wanted this server back up and running by Monday morning. This is Friday afternoon. And we still don't know how widespread this ransomware attack is. So, you know, we get our best operators on it. We work 24/7 if needed over there from our adversary pursuit center downtown Colorado Springs, and you know, we jumped in and began the investigation remotely. We have a capability of doing all this remote, so we gain remote access and we start looking at the artifacts of this attack. So we were able to identify that this attack was isolated to this one server, and in fact, this server was not even on their regular network. This was hosted by a third party. So that was a good thing. So we knew that it hadn't spread. At least the indicators we had at that time was that it had not spread throughout their network. So as we're looking at this further, I'm noticing, as I begin my forensics work on here, I'm noticing that this isn't the only unusual looking activity on this machine, this ransomware. There are some additional accounts that have been created on this machine 6 months prior that looked out of place, things that just didn't look right. And the evidence, as I was going through doing the forensics, the evidence was telling me that there was something else happening on this box months prior. So as I'm working through a timeline, I build a forensic timeline, and then I work through that to help identify specific events and what evidence I can connect to people in those events. And then I'm always looking for mistakes, the adversary's mistakes, to help identify them. And in this case, I'm working through the timeline and I'm working backwards, and I get back to this happened in May or June, and I get back to December, and I'm seeing some anomalous activity going on back in December. And by now I've identified 5 different users of this machine that were unauthorized credentials. And so at this point I decide, we need to engage our threat intelligence team. We have an incredible team of analysts, intel analysts that again come from the intelligence community. Our VP of threat intelligence is, one of the most experienced people in intelligence that I've ever met, and the value that brings to our customers in combination with the forensics work that we do and Hunt, to be able to add to that the intelligence that this group gains on the adversary, helps immensely in this type of investigation. So I take this information to the threat intelligence team and I said, look at this. We have 5 different adversaries on this server. I don't believe they're connected. Based on the forensic evidence and what was happening with each one of these accounts, I could see what they were doing over the last 6 months on this machine. Through forensics, I'm able to see that one of the accounts was conducting, or one of the hackers, I'll just call them what they were, one of the hackers was buying and selling some odd things on eBay with some fake accounts. Another one was scraping the internet for email addresses and was conducting phishing schemes against other organizations. Another one that was using the box was had some hacker scripts installed on there where he was trying to harvest credentials from PayPal accounts. So there was.
So these were all separate actors.
Separate actors on using the same system. Now, what we were really concerned about, of course, is our client's data, because there was, proprietary data that was stored on this server. So that's our biggest concern, of course, is making sure that we find out what happened to that data, if anything. But going through this process, doing the forensics combined with the threat intelligence, our threat intelligence analyst comes back and he says, "You're going to love this." He said, "We found evidence of this server based on its IP address at the time. This server had been compromised 6 months prior, just like the forensics had shown, and had been put up for sale on a dark website for only $5 to $15.
For people to get the credentials to use it for whatever scheme they
Correct.
wanted to.
The IP address with the proper credentials could be bought for $5 to $15 on the dark web, and then your account would be created for you on that server by the original hacker.
So there's like somebody encrypted it, asked for ransomware. You found all these other things. So there's some bad guys mad at other bad guys here.
I believe
messed up their scheme.
I
right?
believe that's what happened. Yeah, it was interesting to see and put all these pieces together, combined with the threat intelligence and the forensics, to see that that we were able to put context to this entire event, not just the ransomware that occurred 6 months later, but the original exploit 6 months prior. We were able to put a context and a story behind that through this work, and really, and in addition, I don't want to leave out the fact that we were able to determine as well through forensic analysis that the client's data had never been touched by any of these bad actors that had access to this box.
Except for the ones that encrypted it.
They never encrypted their data. The encrypted data from the ransomware was the data of one of the other hackers. It was very interesting. So I don't know if they got angry at each other, if it was just trying to one-up each other or something like that. I don't know. But it was a very interesting case.
So I'm a company. Sounds, I'm kind of scared now, afraid, I don't know what. What did I just learn? What can I do for myself?
Well, I will say there was a lot of mistakes made by this third-party vendor that had set up this server for them.
Okay.
We were able to gain insight into the security set up by this third-party vendor, and it was extremely poor. And our
So
client,
was it a bad selection of vendor? Was it something that was grossly ignored?
I can't say that in general it was a bad selection of vendor. I'm not in a position to say that, but I can say that the security was not even close to what should have been.
So best practices were ignored.
Yeah, absolutely, especially for the type of data that was being transmitted daily from this server. Its purpose, it should have been much more secure than it was.
So
the vendor, basically, if you're the company, you're the owner of that business, or you're the IT director. I think that understanding and having confidence in your vendor with that critical data would be extremely important, and would, in my opinion, should involve maybe another additional third-party audit.
So
to
a
come
vendor
in.
to set it up and somebody to check into it.
Correct.
Check into their work.
We do what's called an attack surface baseline. Some in the industry will call it a penetration test, but this is a lot more than that. Attack surface baseline is a lot more than just a penetration test. But having a service like that come in and look at your perimeter defenses, including anything that may be housed in a third-party data site, a data server, or even in the cloud, to have us come in and test that, we'll see where these vulnerabilities are.
So you are, and that's what I was going to ask you, where you fit in. If somebody's been compromised, you're the emergency response fireman, right?
Correct. We have incident
But then
response.
you mentioned two other, type of operations. One, to harden it, to put the system together, and two, the secondary party to check it out. Do
Right.
you fit into the secondary party, or do you do hardening as well?
I mentioned the pillars of the company earlier. We have a network defense operations pillar of the company that focuses on the hardening.
Okay.
So
you do all three of those, basically.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But you have to have a separate party do them. So you wouldn't say we do everything, because then you kind of like the fox watching the hen house, right?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the mistakes that a lot of organizations make, is they task their internal IT people with doing everything. And to use the cliche, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And
So just some checks and balances, some third parties, and Route 9B. I know some other people around here and in the industry offer similar services. But you guys, talk about the strength, and I know there's been some awards, some nominations for best products.
Yeah.
Give me a little understanding of that with Route 9B.
Yeah, we've been listed or ranked number one on the Cybersecurity 500 list for the last 4 quarters in a row.
Who sponsors that?
Their name escapes me, to be honest with you.
You have to send me the link so I can put it on.
Yeah,
the
I'll send
podcast.
you a link. I forget the organization that does that ranking, but that's been an exciting thing for us, to see where we come from. When we first started talking about Hunt as a defense, and the methodology of Hunt, there was a lot of people in the commercial industry that just kind of shook their head and said, that doesn't play in the commercial industry, and it does, and we've proved it.
So, and I when I heard you talk about that, as somebody who is an employee or has a company that sounds like they let you in on the network to kind of just always be nosing around. Now, the big brother aspect of that makes me a little bit nervous.
I can understand that. However, one of the things we do from the very beginning is we don't say that we need to be on every endpoint in that network. We can hunt in a large network and a small network, but we do it very strategically. It's tactical. This is, in a way, what Hunt is. It's just tactical forensics. It's very targeted. Before we begin hunting, we work with the company's IT staff to identify what are the critical business processes that could be hit or could be affected. Where are the data stores? Where are the critical data stores? Let's look around that network first. Maybe that's a sub-network within the company. Let's hunt there. And that might be every single day. We might put hours into hunting on those machines every day. And then we may take, another sub-network within the organization, and maybe we hunt on that one a little less frequent because it's not where maybe critical data is stored, but still could be vulnerable.
So you're not going to be digging through everybody's data to see what they did for lunch and
no,
what
we're not
their
reading
latest emails were.
Right,
and stuff.
we're not reading emails. We're looking at
But
processes.
you could, and that's the kind of the big brother aspect. When you get in there, somebody gives you the keys to the kingdom.
We're not even interested in that, honestly. The communications is outside the scope of what hunt is. Hunt, that might come into play if there was an incident that happened. Then we may need to look at, through forensic analysis, look at some of the communications that occurred and see if someone had been compromised through email or something like that. One thing to keep in mind is these attacks are not always conducted by external adversaries. I mean, there's plenty of internal threats in large organizations as well. So, that should
You're
not
also
be
kind of
ignored
looking
either.
at the internal threat. Now, just playing devil's advocate again here.
Yeah.
You guys, your company's growing. You're doing a lot of hiring. At some point, you're going to get a bad actor inside your company that now has the keys to the kingdom in how many companies? What's your thoughts, plans for that happening?
Well, I really doubt that.
Okay.
I really doubt that. Knowing where our people come from, our number one asset is our people. There's no question about that. All the way from our leadership, down to every operator within the company, through our business development people, through marketing, everywhere. Our marketing director has a forensic certification. These are people that know the industry, that have been vetted and are trusted. And I don't see that happening within our organization to where we have a bad actor that's actually got the keys to anything for that matter. We have our own internal checks and balances. Forensic investigations, we can turn on ourselves if needed.
Well, fair enough. I'm not going to dig into that anymore. I wanted to raise that question. Kind of in closing, I want to know what your needs are for hiring. What are you looking for? What type of skills are needed in the industry? And how can educational institutions help support that pathway of new people?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. We have put in significant effort in 2016, and we will in 2017 as well, in working with educational institutions to help them develop the curriculum to where they're turning out mission-capable individuals. That these people are coming out of, whether it's a certificate program or a degree program, whatever it is, they're coming out, they're mission ready. The hands-on experience is extremely important. The conceptual and book knowledge is good. You got to have that as a backbone, to your experience. But the experience is critical. So one of the things that we work with educational institutions with is helping them to develop curriculum that is more hands-on, that's more real world. So they're seeing ransomware in the classroom. They're not just reading about it. They're seeing it. They're understanding how it operates, how it works, different types of exploits, how these machines are exploited. They work on exploiting them themselves. Our mantra is really to think like the adversary, and we want people that think like the adversary. And how do you gain that knowledge? By doing. You gain that knowledge by doing, whether it's capture the flag events that happen. I think almost every Friday night here in Colorado Springs, there's a capture the flag
somewhere.
event.
Yeah, it's
somewhere.
getting pretty popular. Huh?
And that goes for up in Denver as well. So going to those type of events, testing your skills, learning from people that have been out there doing it.
Okay.
One of the reasons we like recruiting people from the intelligence community within the armed forces and other government agencies is because they've been doing it. They're still young people. and they're still excited. They're excited and ready to work, but they have a skill set that has been developed over doing the work. And, so that's really what we're looking for, is, and we know that's hard to find because cybersecurity is changing. It's changing. It's, we have new adversary techniques coming up all the time, and we have to learn them, and we have to adjust to them and figure out what the proper defense is. And so what our role, we believe in education, is not only do we do our own training, you can come and take training from Route 9B, this advanced cyber training, but to work with education institutions to help them develop their curriculum, like I said, to where it's more real world, it's more hands-on, to where these people are employable right when they come out.
Yeah,
that's what we want.
So last thing, anything you want to get out from yourself, Route 9B? I'd love to have you back to talk about your work in the child protection. I'd love to do a show just on that.
Yeah.
But anything you want to get out to the public, events coming up, things you want people to look at?
Well, we always have some kind of events that we're involved in, trade shows or things like that. Another interesting fact that we're really proud of is we've been uplisted to the NASDAQ now. So that's a big step for the people that have been with Route 9B for since the beginning. To achieve that goal and be on the NASDAQ now is really exciting, and everybody's excited about that within the company. But so there's that. But we always have events going on. I would encourage people to look at our website, route9b.com. Also, the job postings are there. I mean, we're actively hiring.
Definitely something we want to get out to students and stuff like that.
I have a posting going up, any day, for incident response, for a lead incident response analyst. By the time this airs, we may have actually hired that position. I'm not sure, but we're actively looking, quite often, and we do have several job postings there right now for qualified people. So.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining today, James.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll have to have you back on. If you have any news breaking, whatever, please give me a call, let me know, and come back on.
Will do. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.